This is Charleston's retirement coach, Brandon Bowen.
Solo aging. It's becoming much more of a new norm amongst older adults. The latest study by AARP found more than a third of adults over 50 are divorced. Half of women over 70 are widowed. And half of women over 70 are widowed. And this is something that we've actually addressed before on the radio program is women in finance and retirement planning and how much they are underserved. And I know that this is close to your heart because of all the women that you work with at Bowen Wealth, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've thought about it here recently, and I would venture to say that half of the new households that come on board are single women, either divorced, widowed, never married, whatever, that are having to make this decision themselves. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's more and more and more. It's like every week, we might get 2 or 3 new households, and at least one of them, she's doing it on her own. Okay. And that might be you listening right now. In fact, the most recent one that I can think of, I want to talk about her. She might be listening because she said, that I've been listening for 6 years. I've been doing this almost. Okay. Because when we finished, I was like, hey, let me get you all this information on all these portfolios that we're doing. She goes, nah, Brandon, don't even worry about it. I don't need that. I won't read it. I'm just going to throw it away. I trust you. I've been listening for a long time.
Wow.
Hearing what's going on. And I like what you talk about, and I trust you.
Got it.
That's really where I think that, that's the problem here that I want to help fix and address right now is because let's say if you're divorced, well, maybe if you didn't handle the money previously, he handled it, and now you've got half the money or whatever, and now you got to make all these decisions. Or if he passed away and, now you've got all of the money, right? So now you're just kind of like, oh my gosh. And out of fear or indecision, or I don't want some advisor to just sell me something, right? Yeah. They're going to take advantage of me. If I go there and talk to them, they're going to, no telling what they'll do, right? And is it in his or her interest, or is it in my interest? Mm-hmm. You might be thinking, right? Well, so let me talk about my client again. So she's single, came in, she lives up in Ladson up there and she's a nurse, been working at MUSC for a long time. She did bounce around to different hospital systems, of course, as most of the nurses do. And so she's got $1.3 million now.
Okay.
She did a great job. Just, she started putting away early, doing the right things, investing aggressively. And over the decades, this thing has grown. And so now she's, 60 years old and has this money saved. And she's like, Brandon, here's what I have. Here's my war chest. This is the bucket of money that I have. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that it's going to last. I want to make sure it's going to be there for me. And I feel like this money is just so uncertain. It's so volatile. It goes up and it looks great. And I start liking it. And then I turn around and I'll check after a few months and it's down, and I have this pit in my stomach that it's going to go down to 0 or whatever. And I start looking at it even more. And, and it makes me right. So like all these emotional effects of seeing the swings with her portfolio. And, and she's like, I want to retire in 2 years. But so how is this fragile bucket of money supposed to support me,
right,
and be there for me, right? She's in great health and might have another 30, 40 years if we're lucky. And how can I make sure that I can, number one, spend my money with confidence, make sure it's not going to run out? Healthcare, women, a lot of times because you have longevity.
Yep.
And you keep living, right? Well, healthcare, what are you going to do if you need some long-term care later? My dad's mom, Mama B, we called her, Mama Bowen, she lived to 101 and a half.
God bless her.
Woo! Yes. So, and oh gosh, one of the funny times, I was sitting on the back porch with her one time up in the upstate and she had a walker and she didn't get around very good at this point, but we were sitting there and a snake came up on the porch. I turned around and I said, Mom B, there's a snake right behind you. I promise. And she got up like she was
She started
60.
moving real quick that day.
She got up right through that screen door and I was like, whoa. Hey, hang on. And I'm jumping up trying to grab her. I was in high school. And So, like she
wasn't having it.
Yeah, snakes can make you come back
Move
to your
fast.
youth, right?
Yep. Yes, it can. I love
Yes.
it.
But anyway, yeah, so longevity, you keep, and luckily Mom B didn't need care till right there in the last 6 months. But, a lot of people might need years and years of care and stuff. So, if that's you, if you're like, kind of thinking, especially if you're, widowed, single, divorced, female here, and you've got these same concerns and you're just kind of like uncertain, who do I trust? I want you to pick up the phone. Let me give you my number real quick. That's 843-890-2400. 843-890-2400. You can call or text the phone number right now, and you can text the words second opinion, okay? Because I want you to come in and sit down with me for a stress-free, no pressure first appointment, and that's where we'll sit down. I want to hear what's going on, what your concerns are, and then see how we might be able to help. But back to my client there, when we reviewed her portfolio, remember at the hospital system, I showed her she was 85% aggressive.
Okay.
And I was like, that's the reason why this thing is swinging like it's out in a storm, in a hurricane, out in the ocean. And this thing's huge waves are, I was like, that's why. That's one of the first things we can do is we can reduce your risk, your exposure here. Let's kind of take a good chunk of that and let's sit it on stable, dry land where there's not a storm going on.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Let's de-risk your portfolio. Then once we did that, I said, okay, how much money do you need for your living expenses, right? Your standard of living. And she already knew her numbers, like you listening probably. She was like, well, I need about $4,000. She didn't need much, right?
Okay.
So I need $4,000. That's, that's my transportation, my food, my housing, just my simple stuff, my dignity. So, we allocated money. So that's always going to be there for her. Okay. And then there's still a ton of money left over, of course. Right. And I said, okay, now with this other stuff, what do you want to do with some of this discretionary money? And she said, well, Brandon, all I want to do is spoil my grandkids.
Sure.
That's all I want to do. Like, in fact, in 2 years, I want to be able to travel. Some are out of town, out of state. Some are local here in Charleston. And so she just wants to do that. She just wants to travel and be grandma, granny to these grandkids and spoil them. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Every good grandma. And so, after sitting through our appointment process, she was like, okay, can I tell you the amount of stress that has just, fallen off my shoulders, right? I know how we're going to accomplish these income goals. I see how we're, allocating money for long-term care down the road if I need it. I see how we're going to reduce the risk and not be so, upset when we see these volatile swings in the market. She was loving every piece of it. And like I said at the beginning of this segment here, is like she didn't even need printouts on our portfolios. She was like, I'm good, just, check in with me and, send me balance updates, maybe quarterly. Yeah. Right. But I'm coming to you so I don't stress about that stuff.
Right.
That's why she's coming to me. So you listening, it might be, I might be speaking directly to you if you're, single and having to make these decisions yourself, or even if you're married, maybe a husband and a wife are listening here, or someone that has expressed these same concerns, pass my number along to them. That's why we do this show here, that I want to be an advocate here for you and for the Low Country here to help everyone retire with confidence or answer questions or anything that might be holding them back. This should be the most exciting, fun-filled adventure parts of your life, retirement. And I know after doing this for almost 17 years that you do that better when you have a plan you're confident in.
Right.
When you have no plan, you're watching Fox Business and CNBC and you're worried about this and you don't spend because you're fearful of running out of money, all these things, right? That's why I do what I do. Okay. So I want you to pick up your phone right now and reach out to my office. Tanya is standing by right now, and she would love to text you right back or talk to you on the phone and find out, hey, would you like to set up maybe a 15-minute conversation with Brandon? Or do you want to come in and bring in a little more information to us and say, Brandon, what do you think about what's going on? Here's what I've done. I've worked so hard. Yeah, I wish I saved more and started sooner and all those, regrets that everybody has. Don't worry about that, right? You've got what you got. And I want to show you how we can take that and craft that into a plan tailor designed to you and your goals, your needs, your timelines. Even if you want to work for 5 more years or something, now is the time. Put the plan into place so that we're not rushing to make these decisions, right? Let's do it where there's plenty of time. If you've already retired, maybe you've retired and moved down here and you're already trying to retire on, no plan. Oh my gosh, I want to talk to you too, right? Because you're really carrying a lot of weight right now and a lot of stress. So pick up the phone. I want to offer a no pressure second opinion right now to the next 5 listeners who call or text my office. So here's the number, 843-890-2400. 843-890-2400. If you've saved $500,000 or more, you deserve this no pressure second opinion where we can talk about your goals and what are some simple next steps that you can do for you and your future. 843-890-2400.
Thanks for listening to Charleston's Retirement Coach Podcast with Brandon Bowen. To learn more, visit bowenwealth.com and join Brandon for his radio show, Charleston's Retirement Coach, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 94.3 WSC.
Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Brandon Bowen is licensed in your state, please call 843-203-2030. J. Brandon Bowen is an investment advisor representative of Bowen Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. J. Brandon Bowen is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Bowen Wealth, LLC, insurance licensed in South Carolina. Market Guard is a registered investment advisor with the SEC and provides model portfolios only to Impact Partnership Wealth. Market Guard makes no implied warranties or representations and is not liable for any data presented.